Her lips found me, warm and searching, and I felt the electric shock of her touch. I gasped, dropping my hands to Julian's sweat-slicked chest for balance, as he thrust deeper into Lara below me. I leaned down, capturing his mouth in a fierce kiss, our breaths mingling, the tension coiling tighter between all three of us. "You're inside her," I whispered between kisses, my voice thick with arousal, "and she's inside me. Can you feel us both, Julian, holding you?" He nodded mutely, his breath shaking, utterly lost, caught in the sensory crossfire between the two of us. But this moment, this impossible apex, wasn't a sudden storm. It was a hurricane I had meticulously tracked, its path beginning with a single, glinting message glimpsed over his shoulder days ago. Lara, his co-worker at the gallery down on Royal Street, was laying it on thick. Her words dripped with a sweetness that bordered on cloying, subtle enough to feign innocence, but the undercurrent was unmistakable. Interested. Intensely so. Jealousy wasn't the spark that caught in my chest. It was something sharper, more intricate. An idea. Welcome to the heartstrings and scars, where we unravel the untold stories of love, betrayal, and the life-changing lessons they leave behind. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. We promise you stories that will make you reflect, question, and maybe even see yourself in the characters we share. So later, when Julian walked into our bedroom, "Come here," I whispered, my voice a low murmur against the distant, mournful sound of a trumpet drifting up from the street below. "This part is for you." He was already gripping the antique linen sheets, knuckles white, when my lips descended again, tracing that sensitive line down his abdomen. The path I knew unraveled him completely. The heavy, humid air seemed to amplify every sensation. I adored watching the rapid rise and fall of his chest, hearing the way his breath hitched, snagged in his throat like Spanish moss on oak branches. It fed a hunger deep within me. Every sigh shuddering through him, every involuntary twitch of muscle beneath my touch, every raw reaction. It was mine. Claimed. Afterwards we collapsed, a tangle of slowing breaths and damp skin, the discarded sheets pulled like drifts of snow on the dark wood floor. The faint scent of rain and night-blooming jasmine hung in the air. "God, you're unreal," Julian murmured, voice rough, still fighting to catch his breath. That might have been the best ever. I leaned over him, pressing a lingering kiss to the hollow of his throat, and grinned. "You say that every time." Pushing up onto one elbow, the humid air kissing my bare skin, I reached for his phone resting on the carved mahogany nightstand. "Actually," I said, my tone light, playful, "there's something I want to show you." I unlocked the screen, the cool light momentarily stark in the dim room. But before I could navigate to the saved video, a notification banner illuminated the top. "Julian, you were hysterical today. Seriously, you always make even the most tedious inventory days brighter." I paused, my finger hovering. Curiosity, sharp and insistent, nudged aside my previous intention. I tapped the thread. Her messages weren't overtly sexual, nothing you could point to as definitively crossing a line. But the tone, the relentless frequency, the strategically placed emojis, the way she constantly showered him with compliments that felt just a shade too personal. There was no mistaking it. She wasn't just being gallery-friendly. She was fishing, casting delicate, persistent lines into his attention. And Julian, what surprised me most was his response, or lack thereof. He wasn't shutting it down. He seemed amused, flattered, and maybe, just maybe, basking a little in the glow of her admiration. "You know she's got a serious crush on you, right?" I asked, scrolling slowly through the exchange, letting the implications hang in the charged air. He glanced over, still languid. "Who?" "Lara from work." I turned the screen, so he could see. He squinted. "Ah, that's just Lara being nice." "Really?" I arched an eyebrow. "Is it standard, nice for her to tell you, that you light up her afternoons and punctuate it with winky faces?" He chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "Okay, maybe. I guess I never really thought about it like that. She's not exactly subtle, is she?" "Not in the slightest," I said, leaning over him again, letting my hair brush against his shoulder. "And you're not exactly telling her to back off." "It's kind of flattering, I guess," he admitted, a hint of awareness in his smile. "Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to support us and join our growing community. We promise you stories that will make you reflect, question, and maybe even see yourself in the characters we share." I leaned in closer, my lips near his ear, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Oh, you like being the office heartthrob?" I grinned, dragging my fingernails lightly down the center of his chest. "Don't worry, darling. I get it. Honestly, I'd flirt with you, too." "You do," he countered, his grin widening. I kissed him softly, lingeringly, then pulled back just enough to whisper, "And now, I'm going to show you something even better." The next morning, I woke to the empty space beside me in the heavy four-poster bed. I lay there for a while, the rhythmic whir of the ceiling fan stirring the humid air, thinking about those texts. I could picture her in the gallery's cool, quiet space, laughing a little too loudly at his dry wit, finding excuses to brush against his arm. I wasn't jealous. I was intrigued. So I picked up my phone, the screen bright against the morning shadows filtering through the shutters. "Hey, any chance you're free this afternoon? Just want to chat. Nothing bad, promise." She replied almost instantly. "Sure, is everything okay?" "Totally fine. Bring coffee. And maybe have a good excuse ready to slip out of work early." She knocked on the heavy cypress door about half an hour later, 2 steaming cups of café au lait in hand, nerves radiating off her like heat from the pavement outside. "Hi," she said, her voice softer than her text suggested. "Come in." I smiled, taking one of the coffees. "You're even prettier in person." She fidgeted. "Don't be shy, Lara. I get it." Her head snapped up. "Get what?" "The texts," I said simply, my gaze steady. "The way you talk to Julian." She froze, color flooding her cheeks. "I'm not mad," I interrupted, cutting off the predictable denial. "Not even a little bit." I stepped closer, closing the small distance between us, the scent of her perfume mixing with the chicory coffee. "I just think, if you're going to flirt with my husband, you should do it properly." "What does that mean?" She blinked. "It means," I said, my fingers brushing a stray strand of auburn hair back from her temple, "I have a proposition." And then I kissed her, softly at first, then with more intention, a deliberate, unapologetic claiming. When I pulled back, she just stood there, rooted to the spot, her lips slightly parted, her breathing shallow. Her eyes were wide with shock, disbelief, and something else, a nascent flicker of arousal. Her skin was warm, slightly damp from the New Orleans heat, as I shed her clothes one layer at a time, stretched out on the cool linen sheets of my bed. Nothing left between us but the heavy, expectant air. I took my time. My lips moved over the fragile curve of her collarbone, tracing a slow path downward. Her breathing grew ragged, her fingers tightening reflexively against the sheets when I moved lower still, finding the heat of her right where she needed me most. And then she let go, a quiet, complete surrender, every part of her giving in at once with a soft, shuddering sigh. Later, as the room settled into a quiet stillness, she turned toward me, her cheeks flushed. I've never." "You handled it beautifully," I smiled. Then, her gaze met mine with newfound boldness. "Can I?" I simply leaned back against the pillows, letting the silk straps of my robe slide off my shoulders, exposing my skin to her gaze, to her touch. The sound echoed up from downstairs, the distinct click of the heavy iron gate, followed by footsteps on the worn brick walkway. Lara stiffened instantly, her eyes flying wide with panic. I met her gaze with a calm, reassuring smile. "Relax," I said softly, my voice steady. "This part's for him." A moment later, Julian appeared in the bedroom doorway. He stopped dead, looking like he'd stumbled into a vivid, impossible dream. I rose from the bed and walked toward him, slow, deliberate, completely bare. The floorboards felt cool beneath my feet. I reached him, stood before him, and kissed him, a soft, sure, undeniable invitation. When my fingers went to the buttons of his linen shirt, he let it fall to the floor. When I knelt, the hiss of leather sliding free was loud in the quiet room. I took his hand and led him to the bed, where Lara was already lying back, watching him with a palpable mixture of raw curiosity and flickering nerves. "Help me," I said to her, and she moved toward him as I guided him to sit on the edge of the mattress. I kissed his neck, tasting the salt of his skin, as she lowered herself slowly, tentatively, before him. He gasped the moment her lips made contact, his hands flying back to grip the sheets. "It's okay," I whispered in his ear, my breath warm against his skin. "Let us take care of you." I guided Lara to lie back, her legs parting in silent invitation. "She wants you, Julian," I whispered, my voice firm. "Go to her." He climbed over her with deliberate, almost reverent care. Their bodies met with a soft gasp from her. I knelt beside them, my hand on the taut muscles of his back. "Take your time," I whispered. He began to move, slow and steady at first. I watched the connection form, raw and electric, then climbed over her carefully, positioning myself just above her mouth, my body hovering over hers. And that is when her lips found me, leading us to this very moment. Breathless, I eventually slid off Lara, letting them reconnect. "Your turn," I said to her, my voice husky, guiding her gently upwards. "Take control." She climbed on top of him, straddling his hips, and eased herself down. His head fell back against the pillows, eyes wide and glazed. She started to move, slow and cautious at first, then finding her rhythm, her power. "She's beautiful like this," I whispered, my lips close to his ear. "Isn't she?" He couldn't answer, breathing too fast. "Taken, loved, claimed." My voice was a low thrum. "That's what you are right now. Completely ours." I saw it building, the tension reaching an unbearable peak. His hands tightened convulsively around her waist. "He's close," I whispered, my eyes meeting Lara's over his rising chest. She didn't falter. I cupped Julian's face in my hands. "Finish him, baby," I whispered against his lips, a command meant for her. Lara dropped down, bearing down on him one last time. His whole body went taut, rigid as wire, a guttural sound escaping his throat, half breath, half surrender. And then, with a final, shuddering sigh that seemed to echo in the humid air, he let go completely. She collapsed onto his chest, spent and trembling. I curled up beside them, brushing the damp strands of hair from Julian's forehead. His eyes fluttered open, dazed and unfocused, finding mine. I leaned down and kissed him once more, slow, deep, and full of every unspoken promise I had just irrevocably kept. Then I pulled back just enough to whisper against his lips, my voice soft but laced with undeniable ownership. "That's what you get for being such a good husband." Let's be honest, if you were Julian stepping into that room faced with that scene, would you hesitate or would you dive right in? And what would your reaction be? I truly want to know. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll definitely be reading them. And if this story drew you in, please show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications, so you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much for being here and listening.